think it's time we blow this scene. Get everybody in the stuff together. Okay, 3, 2, 1, let's jam.
Ready to go. Cool. Welcome everyone to our No Cap Gaming episode 3. It's been 2 amazing episodes of No Cap Gaming so far, and just to clue you in on what's going on today, we have a spicy topic. Are Web2 devs killing Web3 gaming? Now, this all stems from some really interesting spicy takes that we've seen on the timeline. Essentially, people saying that Web2 gaming devs have come in and not taking it too seriously. Either they've dropped out, they don't understand the degen mindset, or even worse, they're actually actively stealing the pots from players that they're meant to win. So with that coming up, we'll discuss that around the panel. And of course, if you are in the audience, if you would like to come up, just wave, retweet the room, follow every lovely person who is up here. They're all giving their time to be awesome to the rest of you. And yeah, without further ado, let's get a round of intros up and running. So yeah, take it away, Pretzel.
He needs to join the stage before he can speak.
Okay. All right. Who we got then? I can see we got Funny Donald in the house. How are you feeling with the tariffs and everything now that you've removed them? How's it going?
You know what the thing is? I feel great. I feel hugely great. And I love being in this space because I love games. I love playing games. I love playing all the best games. And nobody does it better than I do, believe me. I love playing games with the markets. I love playing games with crypto. I love playing games because Web3 games and Web2 games, you know, I can never get enough of the games. I love the games. Beautiful games. The Hunger Games, that's the only game I don't like to play because I like food.
And how's the game going with China? I saw you slap some extra tariffs on those today. Any tariffs on gaming coming in?
No tariffs on gaming as long as you're cool and you're hip and you're not fans of Diet Pepsi. All right. No tariffs for you. I love Diet Coke. If you don't love Diet Coke, you're dead to me. But other than that, I love the games. Beautiful games, strong games.
And that's cool. And we'll now be basically having tariffs on Pepsi as well, just because, it sucks. So yeah, who else have we got up on the stage? Feel free to shout out there. We've got a lovely senior choice. We have Slayer up here and some more awesome people around. Okay. Someone, who have we got?
All right. Well, I'm gonna jump in. Brett's are
Yeah,
here,
go for
content
it.
creator, community builder too. Came from Venezuela almost 11 years ago to United States. Been creating content for the past 6 years as a gaming content creator, but with a background of journalism and photography. I'm part of Wolf I'm Avalanche ambassador too. I'm with Warp too. Yeah, head of gaming of Warp. We're gonna do amazing things with Warp. We're gonna build community in Warp. We're gonna play a lot of games in Warp. And I'm proud to be here. Happy to be here. Excited to be in this conversation with so many legends in the space.
Thank you so much for the intro. And yeah, moving on. We have Slayer in the house who has joined the X Spaces as well. Let's go for it. There is sometimes a bit of a lag on these things when people are joining everything.
What's up, guys? Slayer here, COO of Wolvesdal. Also support a lot of projects in this space through advising and consulting, including being an advisor to WarpDAO. But really excited to be here, just generally excited when people are having real conversations or trying things to push the space forward, because I do believe in Web3 gaming. We will make it, but we have to have the honest conversations that need to be had.
Agree on that. And yeah, senior choice.
Hey, Matt. Thank you for having me. Senior Choice here from Colombia, Cali, the capital of the salsa. BD in the space, jump in 2021 with Axie Infinity, being a play tour and coach, being a community moderator, being a community manager, being head of partnerships and BD for different projects. Now I'm pushing partnerships with Esports Colombia and a crazy good gaming center based in Cali with 44 top-notch gaming computers where I'm hosting events for different brands. This Saturday, hosting one for Avalanche. We're going to have people playing off the grid the right way. And yeah, excited for this conversation to happen. Thank you for having me.
All good, all good. And going around, we have the Shaolin.
Hey everyone, this is the community manager for D-Lab Games and advisor for Andromeda. Love just being in the gaming space. What I love is interesting and spicy topics. Warp, you guys are the kings, so I'm here for it. So I'm going to keep it short, but let's get this party started, man. Love it.
Yeah, let's go for him. And
It's
yeah, we got
getting hot in here, so take off all my clothes. It is getting so hot, I'm gonna take my clothes off. Now that I got that image in your head, it's a beautiful image. We'll keep going.
fantastic. And yeah, I guess we're going to get into the topic unless we've got any more intros that people want to do. Aero, do you want to shout out?
Yeah, why not? Hey, yeah, I'm Aero or Simon. I'm head of ecosystem at Warp. So excited to have this chat. Lots of beautiful people. Thank you for joining us. Going to be a good topic. Going to get spicy.
Yeah, all
Hopefully.
cool. It's going to get spicy. Ophid, any spice from you?
No, I'm not spicy. I don't do spice. I've realized that spice gets me into trouble. So I'm going to be incredibly well behaved and quiet. So I am. And also because, I'm kind of cheating here. Because as the Donald will know, I'm sitting here and I'm also got the golf on the other screen. I'm watching the Masters and listening to you guys at the same time. Gotta love the golf.
That's amazing. And Donald is definitely an expert at golf.
It's true. Nobody knows how to whack a ball with a stick more strongly than I do. It's all about the grip. You got to choke up on your club. You got to have a good stroke. You got to have a strong stroke and choke up on the shaft. It's very important. Some people, they don't make good contact with their balls, but I do.
Oh, that's amazing. And it's always a pleasure to have you up on the space, Mr. President. But yeah, let's start off the topic with essentially Did any of you guys actually see the drama that's sort of unfolded in the last couple of weeks or so with not only many Web3 games crashing out in general, but there's been quite a few sort of hints at, or at least comments from some creators and others in the space that basically Web2 game devs have been kind of responsible for some of the downfall of these games. Me on his spicy takes. I'm going to start picking people. It's going to be like a
Please
class.
do. I mean,
All right,
I want you to go after
I'm gonna
people.
ask Slayer on this one. What's your take on currently what's happening in the system, and do you think there is actually being like, have you seen the same call outs I've seen about Web3
Yeah.
versus Web2?
I've been seeing the news. I actually was in Blade of God early, and we obviously know a lot of the Shrapnel team. First of all, I would say that taking signal from crypto Twitter, generally bad idea. Good to know what's going on and where the conversation's at, but like any other social platform, not a place for nuance, right? So people will jump on things, make blanket statements, and that's just not productive for our space. So yes, a lot of studios in general, just across the board, are crashing out or going out of business. Doesn't mean they're all rugs. If you know about tech in general or Web2 gaming, the success rate is usually low single digits, like maybe 3 to 5%. So I'm actually not surprised by the number of studios not making it right now, and we should expect more over the next couple of months as the raising environment and the ability for teams to get money from tokens, NFTs, and stuff like that continues to be poor. Any team that needs to raise in the next quarter or two is probably not in a good spot. That being said, there are individuals or teams that probably weren't going to make it. So I think this is actually healthy for our space, that there is a reset, there's a cleaning out of models in this grand experiment we're all doing together that were proven to not work, right? You want to clear those out so that there is room for new innovations and people trying different things to have a chance and move our space forward. In terms of some of the specific examples, the trouble you get into is when someone coming from Web2, and let's be honest, most people with dev experience come from Web2. Our industry is a couple years old. Very few dev teams were just born in Web3 as their first job ever and never touched anything in Web2. The trouble is when you come from Web2 and you don't realize or don't acknowledge that there are serious differences in the Web3 space, and ignoring that leads some of these teams to decisions like, hey, we tried, we didn't really understand the space. Let's just go back to Web 2. So I think that's more of what's happening, and it's more productive to talk about that than just starting with a blanket of, hey, Web 2 game dev sucks, because you have examples like Fableborn, where people come from Web 2 and they're bringing solid product experience in while making a serious effort to understand Web 3 and how to appeal to those personas as well.
Yeah, and I sort of want to. I kind of started this space as a leading thing because I am a Web2 experienced dev, and I don't want to be the person who is apparently killing Web3. So I just kind of wanted to also find out what kind of DGen take on this. What is all the beef there? Because I think the market is under a lot of stress, as we've seen from Donald's tariffs. It hasn't gone super well for everyone in the last couple of weeks or so. Things have been going a bit crazy. So, I mean,
sorry,
really,
not sorry. Okay.
definitely on that one. But I think it's one of those things that for me is it's a new industry, as you pointed out, and I think a lot of people coming into it. There's a difference between the perception of who comes into this with the wrong intentions, and I want to just sort of find out, do we think that there is actually much division between people who got into it as founders and people who got into it from the dev side? Because I can also tell you from the Web2 side, there is not a lot of Web2 companies that are successful and founded by purely games people. Many of those people who founded companies came from different backgrounds and built games companies and then hired those devs themselves. So we've seen a lot of people from finance backgrounds and such found companies in Web2, in Web3. And I'm wondering, is it the advice people get from either Web 2 or Web 3 that kind of makes these things mess up? Because as you can see, it's hard to believe that this is actually shrapnel that we're watching on screen. It's not textured. And to be honest, it's kind of crazy that this was released in this kind of state. So I'm yeah, the mind boggles as to the difference between here and off the grid, where off the grid is absolutely lush. But Shrapnel already had that massive presence and already was basically pushing the Web3 relevance side. So do you think it's Web2? Like, do you, that
It's
one
so many
trying to get them
factors.
exactly?
It's so many factors, right? There's so many like areas in this space where you can go wrong. And when people's money and skin and reputation is in the game, and you don't see that. I mean, it's hard enough to have any kind of an NFT or Web3 or DeFi. It's hard for any of them to be successful. About max 10% of games manage to make it to market and then turn into a successful business. When you think of the odds of success, they're low. But when it actually materializes and many studios fail, especially when there's skin in the game, especially when people are invested in these things, especially when they've been promoting these things, people are looking for someone to blame.
Yeah, exactly. And
really, it's the odds. Blame the odds.
I get that, but I do think there are some things that we do in Web3 that is kind of alien to Web2. We do some things that's completely alien to Web2, like building in public. I had never heard of that in Web2. That's almost a sin. In fact, we spin up companies, entire fake companies, just to market the games in case anyone pins it on us. We don't even want the game to, like, if the game sucks, we don't want people to say that about our game. So we'll spin up an entire fake company, release the game, and then shut down the game, no matter the size of the community, if it's not doing what we want it to do. So these practices are completely alien. And I think sometimes some of what comes across in Web2 to the Web3 people is, we're the experts, listen to us or you'll get screwed. And what I think sometimes comes back from the Web3 side is, you know nothing about our space. You are destined to fail if we don't like you. And therefore, you got to give us a lot of money up front to get us to like you. So, yeah, what's your takes on this? Anyone else? So, Joyce?
Hey,
Yeah,
so
for sure.
go ahead. My bad.
No worries. Nayman, I think that there needs to be kind of a connection between the two worlds, right? There's people that is native to the Web3 space and understands how to navigate it to some degree, but the metas keep changing so often, so fast, that it's hard to keep up with them or try to hit them all in the spot, right? Um, I will not fade the experience of developers that come from Web2 that have, the experience, the years, the titles, the successful stories. And what I think that happened is that when they saw the opportunities that the technology was unlocking, they came to the space with the intention of building something cool, but they also came with the intention of, hey, there is a possibility to raise good money here to get the funding that we're looking for and make it happen. And from the previous booms, we saw VCs that were practically passing money into projects that didn't even have um, a product to show. It was just the idea or just a teaser or just this is what we want to build. And they empowered, they gave the money, but then these teams tried to hit the metas, lost the resources, and some intentionally, some unintentionally, but just didn't have a product to deliver in the end. And then, like Arrow was saying, they're just looking for someone to blame. Sometimes it was responsibility of the Web3 founders that knew what they were doing by bringing Web2 devs, making them show their faces and put them in front of an audience and using their experience. They worked for X or Y studio, they had experience on X or Y project before, but then they were just gone with the money, and then they repeated that action over again while the markets allow it. Now the funding for Web3 gaming is short and it's difficult to get, and I believe that we're transitioning, right? We're transitioning. We're seeing now a mixture of the two worlds getting together. Now there's not a single team that I know of that doesn't have someone who's to some degree knowledgeable about what's happening in the Web3 world, nor someone who doesn't know what happened before in the Web2 world. So it's like now we're bringing the people that says, hey, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. There were marketing strategies that were working before. There were, timelines and milestones that we know that we have to hit. And that's for sure because gaming, either Web2 or Web3, is still gaming. And you have to deliver something that triggers emotional responses from people. They need to set them apart. They need to build community. But yes, what you were mentioning was also crucial here is the fact that we are doxing and that we're building in public in front of people. And if you fail, you don't have like the possibility to just like, let's close this project regardless of the revenues bringing, and that's it. We continue with the next one. Here, it's a lot more complicated because you have the whole community keeping an eye on you, and not just on you, but on your tokenomics and how your token is going to perform. I think that the truth is that there's nobody to be blamed for it. Like, talked about in the tweet, I think that it was pretty awful, the behavior from the Web2 team, just setting the Web3 team apart without prior warnings or the proper way. Like, that was just lack of human intelligence and relationships. But I think that overall we need a little bit of both worlds, because we need to bring liquidity from the investors that are around the crypto world and that want to support projects, but we also need to appeal to the real gamers that want to come and have polished experiences, not like what we're seeing in the screen. Like, it's a game that I know raised millions, and
Mm.
they're launching it, and people is not able to meet a quality experience. So I wouldn't blame any of the two worlds. I think that we need to get them to work together so that the industry can progress. We need
I mean, you're
experience
so
from both sides.
nice. You're so nice, Senior Chess. I see the Shaolin, you've got your hand up. What's your take on this, mate?
So I have so many different takes, but from an analyst perspective, one of the biggest things that's actually missing in Web3 is some type of digital transformation, like specialist. Someone who comes in. This happened in Web2 with e-commerce. It happened with the banking industry. It happened with cloud computing. There's just so many different things that happen in real time, and Web3, magnifies that like 100x because of the level of transparency, and unveiling it all only makes it that much more difficult. It's crazy though, because having been in traditional Web 2 and now fully in Web 3, there's just not enough people who understand enough like accountability in terms of grace, right? I think it's also because of the way Web3 gaming came about with Axie Infinity and so much of this play to earn, and then the focus and fixation on tokens. Um, Most products don't need a token. If you don't have an ecosystem, if you don't have additional revenue streams, a token will be the first downside to you, because you'll be beholden to it, regardless of how beautiful your product is, whether it's still in infancy and working up to an alpha or a beta play test. Like, if your token sucks, no one cares, and then you just lose runway. You lose all of the momentum, lose all the inertia. But when it comes to back to the topic, what it really requires is people who understand not marketing but PR, right? I think there needs to be more PR in the sense of whether it's founders and being connected to communities and driving value, as well as just communication and transparency. So for me, it really comes down to people getting their act together, and to everyone's point, it's like having a nice blend of Web 2 and Web 3, because in the end, when you're talking about adoption, when you're talking about activating gaming as a whole, we have to kind of understand that there's so many different angles and perspectives to drive, success. And the problem really comes down to is understanding. And when I've actually worked with D-Lab Games, when we first started, we actually came to 3 games to go to market. And the biggest friction point for us actually was our devs, because we have over 10 years of mobile gaming experience, and they're like, this works. Why do we need to play to these Web3 people? Why do we have to change and adapt our game to do these things? We know better. We know best. Why are we being dictated by these holders, right? And then it's like one of those things that you just have to kind of unpack. You have to kind of come back to, and sometimes they don't. And unfortunately, whether it's Blades, whether it's Shrapnel, you start seeing that they just start to put their foot in the sand, and they won't pivot out of it, because leadership hasn't driven that level of transformation that's required from Web 2 to Web 3, so that they understand and take these things to another level where they can do it together. I just think it just happens in a vacuum, that it becomes so difficult to understand, because all of them, I'm sure all of us in Web3 have made mistakes along the ways with our projects and our studios. So
I
for
mean,
me, it's
everyone
really
does,
understanding,
right?
how do we do these things? Yep.
Everyone
I'll park
does.
it there, but yeah, 100% agree with you.
I mean, no worries. I mean, this is a channel. Anyone can jump in. Like, when you have something to say, this is a conversation.
Yeah, I'm gonna add to the Spicer thing, because I do think that Web2 companies, I mean, when we're in Web3, we do see a lot of intentional bad actors, but we kind of forget that in the Web2 world, there are bad acting is kind of normal, especially if you're running a business. And a lot of these Web2 companies, they have very successful enterprises in the normal world, and then they see something bright and shiny that looks like it's going to generate them some revenue, and they kind of go and experiment in it, and suddenly all these expectations strapped to their shoulders, and it's tough to be here. And they're not necessarily coming into it thinking this is going to be a massively successful project. They're thinking, well, as long as it generates revenue, I don't really care in some way. And Web2 companies do have a tendency of, when something's, and actually most business people, most people out there wouldn't go so far as a Web3 team, I don't think, to rescue a project. As soon as they see it losing money, they would just cut it and it's end of story. Whereas Web3 grassroots people, you'll find them put their last money into their project to try and rescue. Not always, but you won't see that in Web2. You won't see that in Web2 nearly the same, because it doesn't work like that. It's like, it's not working, cut it.
Yeah, no, that's true, and that's one of the weird things about this, because all of the advantages of having a distributed, decentralized community and being able to raise from that community because they believe in the project also becomes the downfall when you can't deliver on that, or the original idea isn't actually as fun as you thought when you tried to put it together. And I think that's the sort of the hard truth, is that things have to die. Projects and games are not necessarily as good as they could be. But the difference is, I think it's also like we put a lot of our eggs into the one game basket and not look at the studio as a group. So, for example, we know the name of the games. And this is true in Web2 as well. Like, we could, when I worked at King, you could go up to someone and say, hey, I work at King. They'd be like, huh, what's that? And you'd say Candy Crush. They'd be like, oh, I get it now. The companies are actually the ones that should be worried about the token. The token's almost like their stocks in Web3. But what happens is the tokens are often bound into the games and the assets of the game. So if the first game is Can of Ants and that doesn't work, then the entire stock of the company is just trashed. I mean, that can happen in Web2 as well. You release a bad game, but it's the lack of funding in a way for Web3 companies that they only had one shot. It takes, I think, from social studies, it takes like 6 to 9 months for a team optimal size of 9 to 12 to actually work together with each other. And bringing up a studio in a year, staffing up to God knows how many people, or even outsourcing the game, it's just never going to always hit that first time. I think it was like Rovio made before they got angry. And no idea how many before they got Candy Crush, but at one point they were publishing 4 or 5 games a week. Us today on a meeting, it's crazy the amount of volume you have to get before something hits, and that's what I think we need in terms of Web3, the deep caring about the game and the product and all of the stuff around it and the law. That's you take their money. And what we need to be doing is saying, hey, we're all in it together, and it's a studio thing. I mean, feel free to jump in. Anyone, unmute yourself and just add to the conversation.
I feel like another part that is really important that we're not taking into consideration is the community part. Because games, when they come from Web2 to Web3, usually in Web2 you don't take community like something really important. You just build your game, you put it out there, and it is what it is. I don't see Call of Duty people talking to the community about how they can improve the game or what would they like to be put in the game or anything like that. They just build and be done with it. And when you come to the Web3 space, I feel like it's all about community. It's a really important part. I know there are a few factors, of course, but the community is something that it is really important. Is the one that's going to support you through the bad times. Is the one that's going to put the word out there. Is the one that's going to live with passion your game. They're going to enjoy your game. They're going to put the word out there. And in an organic way. You don't even have to spend money most of the time to build a community. You just build it around a game that has something good to give to them. And I'm not talking about money. I'm just talking about enjoying the game. The game has to be a good game, has to be enjoyable. It has to be a game that provides fun time with your friends or whatever it is, depending on the case, of course. But community is something that is overlooked, and I've seen games, even in Web3, closing the doors to the community once they start to get the backslash, instead of just fixing what is broken and then trying to make it better for them, because they're the ones that are rooting for you even when the game is broken. and they just turn the community apart. They put it on a side because you're not talking good about my game anymore. So it's not like that. It's like a family. You're not gonna get a divorce because you did something happen between your wife and you. You need to work through that. You need to make it work, and eventually, yeah, the bad time will pass and the good time will come, and that's a relationship. That's how the way it should be done. And that is one factor. Then you have the factor of you have to identify what kind of community you want to build. You need gamers, of course, but if you're in Web3, you're also gonna have the farmers, you're gonna have the investors, you're gonna have, and you can't speak to every part of that community in the same way. You have to have different messages, different approach, and I feel like that's something that could make or break a game in Web3.
For real. And yeah, as we are approaching halfway through the space, I'd just like to do a little reset of the room. If you like what you're hearing, share and comment, and we'll go through and see if there's any fun comments on there. We look so good from Preza, an advert, and Funny Donald with huge, definitely the case. Everyone's impressed on how good we look. And someone says GM from ARG. And yeah, we'll get back into all of that, and let's go for it. I think one of the things that we've definitely said is like there is definitely a difference. There's a huge difference between how Web3 thinks, builds, acts, and creates, and the value they put in things, the values that they ascribe to community, togetherness, financial reward. Whereas you have Web2 coming from business, a gameplay, process, like repetition, you've got iteration, and these things don't necessarily gel. It's just like if you've ever worked at a big games company, you'll know that basically the devs and the artists generally do not get on in the same room. It's like if you cross ADHD and autism, sometimes it's a match made in heaven, and sometimes they just cannot stand to be in the same area, and they put on bigger and bigger headphones until they can't hear each other. So, like on the next section of the space, I would like to go into some of the things that we can do about this. How do we reach those kids? Like education is often talked about in Web3 for the players. How do we educate each other? How do we actually bring in a Web2 dev and make sure that they understand, you're not to take the prize money? Or how do we educate a Web3 dev that's basically you can tell them you need to make the game actually fun. Otherwise, people don't know what to do. There are so many things I see missed in Web3 games, like Valeria. Sadly, that game died. But if you looked at some of the art and if you looked at some of the tutorials and all of the rest of it, the people who built that clearly have no clue about how to build a mobile game. But then if you look at some of the stuff done by Web2 devs, they clearly had no clue how to treat a Web3 audience. And they just treated with them the same sort of shit we do, which is one YouTube video a year and an empty Twitter page. So yeah, have at it. Jump in, unmute yourself. What do you think we need to do to kind of make this work together better? And what do you reckon the results are going to be?
I just want to say that I love this conversation. The reason I'm being quiet is because my version of gaming is still Tetris. You have to understand, I'm 79 years old and I've got a beautiful body, and Tetris is still hip to me. So all of this, I'm just taking it in, I'm soaking it in. It's a great conversation. And you know what? I think that the future of gaming in America will be the gaming center of the entire world. And it'll be a beautiful thing, Ron. It'll be tremendously beautiful.
All good from you. And yeah, what else have we got in what other beautiful takes have we got from the panel?
Let me piggyback on what you just said, because I think that there is an important shift that I am noticing from the Web2 developers. A lot of developers are suffering with AAA studios, like what we've seen recently with Ubisoft being acquired by Tencent because of the situation with their Assassin's Creed series. But let's not go deep into that, because I think there is a lot more potential out there. One shift that has caught my attention, for example, is what a Battlefield franchise has been doing. Leverage more on the community approach and understanding what the community really wants. And I think this is a very powerful tool that Web3 has learned to use. having that level of connection with their community on what you want to build. So seeing more studio approach this mentality also shows that the market is shifting. They are looking into what as the most value from Web3 developer that have been successful, like we are seeing on screen right now, not Shrapnel, Off the Grid.
They wish, man. Sorry.
What do you think? I mean, because I would like to get some of our panelists' opinion, because what do you guys see that is going to be the major shift from the gaming industry that will leverage more players to come and join their games instead of polishing up, making it look super pretty? We have learned that nowadays most games actually function better when the gameplay aspect is fun, not when the graphics is looking like you need a 5090 to run it.
Yeah, you know what I actually think? I actually think that some of the projects and some of the Web3 games that maybe Web2 devs kind of like shit on or deride actually do deserve to live, do deserve to have a place out there. Those games that may initially, to someone who's like hardcore into games, they're just, what the hell is this? I think they do actually have a place. I think we need to just work together better. We need to have a Web3 degen sitting right next to a Web2 dev, and they basically need to pair program in a way that they can sort of get the good advantages of gameplay first and iteration, and also get that kind of indie spirit and that sort of that drive for community and decentralization, which so often falls apart when the game gets too big or when it gets too sort of top down, and there's always the needs of a game studio to make a multi-year project and continue that funding. They go beyond what the community can or could provide ever since 2021. I think the last raise that you could actually make your games like a proper game from was what Yuga did. And then they went to a company that had never made an MMO before and was like, let's do that. If you have any comments about this, if you have any opinions of what people can do to bring this closer together, feel free to comment in the space. I will go through periodically to see what we have happening and reshare the room, retweet it. These lovely people are all over the industry, experts in every way, and it's great that we have them here in space. Have you seen anything where you'd say it's a success? Have you seen any teams working together pretty well? Slayer,
Slayer's got a hand up.
Yeah, finger on the pulse there.
Yeah, I'll say, one of the biggest things I see from the teams that are heavy Web2 that I've worked with or advised in the past, that's, I think, one of the biggest hurdles to get over just mentally is, especially if you're coming from Web2 game dev where it's box games, right? That you ship something and people pay up front for it, and that is the package they're getting. One of the biggest things they've been hesitant about in Web3 is showing things early. And that's something that's a very Web3 mentality, right? It's more building in the open. And there are Web2 indie games that do this already, right? It's really thinking of how do you build your core community, almost like your Kickstarter folks, your pledgers that are buying in early, that are going to be supporters, and they're more okay seeing rougher gameplay or rougher demos as long as you explain to them and give them the context of that. But I understand the thinking from, let's say a box game dev of you put something out, you know how the AAA or PC gamer crowd is. Oh my God, like this visual clipped one time in this game. People don't know how to dev. And you're used to comments like that. So there's a lot of keeping things close to the chest. Whereas one of the big shifts mentally in Web3 that can benefit you is there is a balance. You don't want to show everything because let's be real, the people in Web3 who are saying we want dev in the open would be really bored to hear that you're working on a tree or a rock for 2 or 3 weeks straight. But some kind of balance where you're giving more frequent feedback and you're giving players a chance to see things, right? Like even one of the suggestions I've given to a game in the past is if you're scared to share your real game, what you could even do is, hey, here's a character that you know and love. I'm going to share you all the old sketches of what this character almost looked like that didn't make it, and the decision making between why I cut those, right? And that's valuable too. But it's for a gamer that was in these discords early. One of the coolest things was that's the closest a lot of people are ever going to get to peeking behind the curtain of dev. And for a lot of dev teams, that's a valuable shift if you're willing to make it, even if you are Web 2 and not thinking of coming into Web 3, because instead of building in a vacuum for years before you finally put something out to then see if people like it, you can get feedback earlier and start adjusting. You're also getting that early buy-in because there's all these psychological studies that show that when people feel like they have a say in something, they start seeing themselves as owners and they like the thing more, right? It's like I saw myself in a part of that. And there are different levels of decisions that you can give people based on how comfortable you are. You can be as simple as naming an NPC after someone in the community, which means a lot for them, but it's relatively painless for you as the dev to give up. So I think it's really just not thinking of it in extremes, but what are good things about both sides that people are willing to experiment in maybe a smaller step first to show them that it's safe and okay, and then kind of ease into it rather than it's a little bit scary for someone who's only ever worked in Web 2 to all of a sudden be like, here's all this crazy Web 3 stuff. Go, good luck. The internet's going to eat you alive if you make a single misstep. You know, I think it's you have to meet them where they are, and a lot of them are open if you say it in the right terms. I think what's not productive to either side is a lot of what you see on crypto Twitter, which is just that no room for nuance or anything, and people, you know, people saying creators are worthless, right? That's another thread that we've seen recently. KOLs are overpaid. Stop working with creators; they all suck. Or founders all suck. You know, that stuff like that is never going to get someone willing to come in. So more nuanced conversation, more direct conversation where you can really meet people where they're at, understand them, but give them a little nudge.
100% agree with that. I think something that I'd like to see more is just a more kind of humble mentality towards creating a game from the grassroots, like a more indie mentality. And I think, you know, we've seen like Ubisoft and Nexon looking pretty good. We've got a bunch of big kind of publisher and studios come in, but really the main sweet spot, I think, probably for web, well, at least like maybe not Web3 today, because Web3 today there's a lot of short-sightedness in terms of investment in Web3 at the moment, and very high expectations and very PvP. But a couple of years ago, maybe 2021, the mentality was more like when you were backing a project, you were really backing it as part of the community. You were part of a group of people that were on a mission together. You felt like you could make a difference and you had skin in the game. As you say, Slayer, when you have that kind of commitment, you can really try and take something forwards. And that's, I think, a much more indie mentality to bringing out a game, is like, and then you can feel like you're comfortable building in the open, because it's not just 100% criticism. It's not looking for people that are trying to put out a spicy take on X just so they can get some impressions. It's more a case of, we've got a great idea for a product. This is a great industry for us to find crowdfunding for it. Here are some realistic expectations, but if you like the look of this game, then get behind it. And actually, by doing that, you can kind of have like, and I wish regulations had done a better job for us. I really wish they had, because that's where we've had a real problem, is that if you could just say to people, okay, we're just doing a normal crowdfunding model that any other indie studio is going to do, but we're actually going to give you tokens that can represent equity or a revenue share. This would be we wouldn't be having a lot of the conversations we're having right now, because you could get real game studios from the indie scene and say to them, look, here, we've got a model for you here, which is a lot cleaner and a lot more transactable than your typical crowdfunding model. And
But then
you can
again,
just activate the
indie,
community you have, you know, and build on it and really ignite them and give them a means through the kind of other elements of decentralization, the community elements, the marketing elements that have kind of come about in Web3. And here's your vehicle to come and help me take this to the masses. I think that would be a lot better place for Web3 and gaming. But obviously, we kind of get ahead of ourselves. Big promises, big budgets, big expectations, big stupid decisions, and the next thing you know, we've kind of overcooked it to the point where we've lost the real roots of how community can be useful in making a great game.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I do think there's one other thing. There's an issue that's sort of like kind of the worst part about gaming and gamers and all the rest of it, is that some of the best indie games and indie gamers probably hate the living shit out of crypto. And they hate us so much that if you were, it's basically like a rapu on their wedding cake. If you were to get the best indie dev and you were to say, here's a sprinkling of crypto on top of that, there are many gamers who would just throw the whole cake out, because I don't know, they've been convinced by people from Web2, like Ubisoft and others, who immediately pounced on it. And they basically had the idea that gamers would be exploited by this, that instead of getting ownership of NFTs, it would just be another way to prize money from their pockets, or like they would just get scammed. They would have all of their money taken. And this was a way to basically get more liquidity out of anyone. And this is pervasive. I remember there was a game that had to, like, not even a game, it was some sort of platform, had a bunch of streamers on it, and it had Web3 for its server structure. And they had to basically beg their fans not to murder them because they didn't know there was Web3 being used as part of the server structure. And oh my God, it's such a tragedy. Crypto is going to eat my baby. It's insanity. The level of like dialogue in games is often so ridiculous that games companies and games people have learned to fear their audience. And they absolutely are terrified of their audience. I mean, when I was working at RuneScape, they basically doxed me and had my like Twitter posts in their forums on the new game that we were making. And that is quite terrifying to someone who is just basically an artist spending 4 weeks on a bloody tree. I think there's either two ways of doing it, like radical transparency, but you've got to remember that there are pioneers coming into this space, and that there are also people who should be in the space and it will benefit them, but they don't see it. And they like, there's lots of reasons around that. And I think Web2 games, the bigger ones, have a bit of a thing to answer to. Ubisoft saying they were going to do it. There was also some mythical games, which quite a big one, tried to do it. There was Zynga that messed around with Sugartown, gave them like 2017 tokenomics and then abandoned the project. I think there's been a litany of large Web2 companies that have touched it, got soured on it, and then messed off with it. So yeah, I think the indies, we need to reach those kids and find a way to tell them that crypto isn't hell, you know?
Well, to be fair, if there were any group of people on the planet that would likely eat babies, I've met quite a few crypto people that would probably fit the bill. Just, keeping it real,
Does make sense.
BitBoy, I mean, you can't tell me BitBoy doesn't look like a baby eater just a
He
little
does.
bit.
Like, I swear to God, there's going to be a video of him saying the other white meat, and then it's going to go horribly viral.
Yep. You heard it here, folks.
Heard it here first. BitBoy, baby eater, as said by President Trump. No, I mean, there is a lot of crazy stuff in this space, and that's why I love it. I absolutely love it. Doc Funk, I can hear you in the spaces. Come up, give us some of your funky loves.
Hello, friends. Well, first of all, thank you. It's great to follow Baby Eating today on this lovely Thursday. Look, it's we encountered a lot of we went to GDC and I went to mainly Web2, or I guess I'm just going to call it traditional events. And we spent a lot of time on the expo floor. And there were two things that we encountered in general. One, from the just general folks out there building, they asked what I did. It's like, we're building a rewards platform. It's a UA thing. We're building a streamer, and we use some blockchain tokens, things like that. And they say, oh, Web3? One of them said, I didn't even know that was still a thing, or that seemed like something cool that didn't really quite work out. Right. So that was like part of it. And then we'd go to some of the larger booths and companies and explain what they did. And they really got it because, well, I mean, what we're doing specifically is merging Web2 traditional player behavior and with Web3 analytics. And that's part of the backbone of our service. And that solves a problem for them. So they were really happy about that. But I think overall, the thing that really got through to people as I like did my pitches was just like, we're trying to de-risk the idea of using cryptocurrency as a payment, right? Or as a reward. And then from there, we have to like discuss, how that's used in games. So I think we just kind of have to reverse course on a lot of stuff. Crypto, blockchain, Web3 are three different things, right? Cryptocurrency is sound money, blockchain is technology, Web3 is an ethos. And the better that we do in redefining what we do as an industry and how these definitions are applied to the things that we're building, the better off that we're going to be. The less we talk about money here on the timeline and making it or grinding it or earning it or airdropping it, and start actually talking more about a kind of a return to form. This industry, there's so many great people working here, and it's tough to hear and see on the timeline people dogging. I mean, some of it's deserved. Like, we're all, I think we're probably all guilty in some very small regard to that. But we know that there are so many great people here building, and we just have to make some radical course corrections in the things that we say as people here on the stage and people in this industry, and how we promote the stuff that we're doing to our intended audience. Is our intended audience crypto native people? Is the yield or the airdrop or the tokenomics or the business models or raising funds, like that's all we really talk about. Over there on the traditional side, they were talking about gameplay loops, like graphics, like what's fun or things like that. That's what those builders were talking about, is actually making games. So I just think that we were a young industry and we found ways to package this technology into something we thought made sense. A lot of money came in probably too fast. And I think we just need to kind of go back down to the grassroots a little bit and pull up our socks a little bit, and go for the next natural evolution of how we actually speak about this part of the industry and using blockchain and Web3 in games.
Senior Choice has a hand up. Go ahead, Senior Choice.
Yep. Senior Choice.
Satois?
Satois. While Satois is working on his sound, we have
Totally agree, Dr. Funk. I totally agree. It just needs to be a different kind of perspective entirely. Resetting things, resetting expectations, and just going back to what is real.
Yeah, no, cool. I also see that. Can anyone hear me? Am I rugging?
No, you're good.
Okay,
You're loud and clear. I'm just interrupting.
All good.
Yeah. Okay.
And you sound hot. You sound tremendously hot.
Thank you, sir. We
You're
have
welcome.
a random Doug hype up in the space. Doug is someone who I think with his Channel 9 News would be an absolute perfect fit to interview the president one day. And yeah, Doug, what's happening in the space, and what's your take as we're coming to a sort of close on this one? What's your take on like Web2, Web3 games? How can we be all friends and better together?
I'm in the process of that right now. As you guys speak, be careful what you say, because you're being streamed on the arena to at least 30 people. But soon it'll be 360, because that's what we like average in the arena, because we know how to do it in there. Also, I saw Slayer streaming there today. I need Slayer to come on my streams more. This is the thing, is what we need to do is galvanize friendships. It's like a super team. You know what I mean? It's like the Justice League, the Super Friends. We come together, we do really cool stuff. And people call that B2B as opposed to B2C, or we hang out with each other and build amazing stuff, amazing communities. And then people want to join that because we've set a great vibe, a great direction, a great, cool, creative space. And then people want to join what we're doing. So right now, I'm literally obsessed with streaming and getting more people to come hang out with us. I just created a new Telegram group that a bunch of you are in. And if you're not, I will add you. You can be in it. And it's about being able to go around, support communities, support people, have fun things to do, and really take advantage of just our humanity and what we love. And when you do that, no one cares about Web 2 versus Web 3. We just want to play games and have fun. Now, there is the extractional, technical Web 3 thing of being able to own your assets, sell them, and all this stuff. That's cool, right? But that's only just one piece of the pie. That's 1/8 of the pie of what we're doing here. And the rest of the 7/8 of the pie, we're still kind of figuring out. But I think there's really great people in the space here that are doing that. In this room right now with us, Preds and Slayer, which I feel like I'm glazing because you guys are part of Warped or whatever, and that's a Warp space. But anyways, I'm going to glaze away. Because I like donuts and cake. But this the thing is people in this room I really love. I really cherish them. Jorge down there also. The Old School Club Gas is down there, and Carrot. Also, if you don't come on my live stream right now, you're dead to me, all of you. This is the thing is the people that we generally love, Matt. That's where good gaming and good stories and good community comes out, is the loving what we do. And we're now in an unstoppable force because we have AI to make thumbnails for me. So watch out. And also I have an army in my Telegram. So bye-bye.
Yeah, and the king of clipping would definitely be back. But yeah, Doug Hype on a great take there. I mean, coming together and working this out and basically building a community that we can bring people into. It often works on a personal level. Like I think Warp, one of the things that really excited me about how that grew up was having personal conversations with friends and people who were outside of Web3 and wanted to be part of it but didn't quite know how, and people who were in Web3 and wanted to sort of interact and meet people who built the industry. And there is a crazy coming together of all the people here. I see that we had, at one point, we had one of the founders of King in the audience. We had some awesome people out there. I recognize a lot of faces that we've got around from the gaming thing. I see a Stray Zinti down there. I see some of our co-founders. We've got Ben as well on this space. I'm just really happy to be part of this with everyone. And we're moving together. Like something is coming together. I think we're slowly understanding each other, whether it's like the artists and the developers having to be basically given separate lunch times. I think we shouldn't have like a Web3 team and a Web2 team. We should be a team. And I think a lot of this is about supporting studios, not just games. Like they're not full sending on game assets before the game is out. There is a way to raise money, and it hasn't been working so much. Is there anyone else who wants to jump in for a quick take?
I have another one. You guys, Warp, Matthew. Look, when we go to GDC and have these cool events and like we have cool stuff where people are giving, being kind, making cool t-shirts, only paying cost for all this stuff. Like, dude, we were surrounded at GDC by just pure love, amazement, and giving. I felt like I was a VIP every second that I was there. And that says a lot because I get invited to VIP events nonstop. And I'm always just like, like whatever, dude. And I usually now I turn down like 90% of them, which is probably dumb. But like the true feeling of being a VIP, being high quality, that's kind of why we're in Web3. We're high risk, high reward type people that want to do something that's interesting to us. We might have zero skills. We might not even know how we got here, right? A lot of us don't, maybe me included. But we want that. We want to go to the casino and play craps with our friends and shout and cheer and walk away with either amazing memories or like a stack of bands, right? We want that in our life. And we are creating that in our own way here, which is kind of crazy. Dr. Funk loves this. And what we have to do is be able to like just sweeten that up a bit so it's not such a harsh thing. It's not just a casino. We can make it fun and exciting for people. Like right now in my Telegram chat, people are like, oh, it's like a party in here. And I'm like, yes, it is. But also I'm going to moderate the hell out of you to make sure that you are doing this in the sense of giving, community, supporting other people. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. And just set a tone. And that's what all the people in this room are here for. We're navigating the ship in Web3, setting a tone so that while 80% of the people might not figure it out, we fucking will.
Oh yeah, 100% on that. As we're approaching the top of the hour, I'd just like to say a massive thanks to everyone who came up here. It is going to be another No Cap Gaming next week at the same time, 3 p.m. Eastern. I want to thank our amazing guests, Grimling, Slayer, Preds, Ovid, Aero. We had Funny Donald up. I'd like a last word from the president. We have Gaspode, who just came in at the end of the hour. Maybe, Gas, you can give us a nice little sarcastic British take on the way out. And yeah, we also had the Shaolin up as well. And a great time had by all. We will get there. We will work together. Let's hear from Gas, and then Funny Donald, you can have the last word on the space today.
Go and enjoy games, people.
Exactly.
Someone was telling me they don't play computer games, and I don't know what they do with their life. I would have so many hours just sat staring at a wall.
Yeah, no, that actually happened. I went to FCC once in Paris, and I met people who had essentially, they were geeks, they were coders, they were developers. They had never touched computer games, and told me, I don't play computer games. I barely play. I don't know what you're talking. Like, what did their parents do to them, man? Anyway, Funny Donald, take us out at the top of the hour. What is your prognosis on Web3 gaming? Is it going to be huge, or is it going to be Tariff Town?
It's not going to be huge because there's no H with the way that I say huge. It's with a Y. So it's going to be huge. tremendously huge. I love Web3 gaming. I love everything that's happening. And the great thing is that the world is the oyster. The world is your oyster. And there are so many newcomers into Web3 gaming coming, and it's going to billions and billions and billions and billions of total market cap, hundreds of thousands of billions, all the billions, all the billions.
I love that. And the world is your oyster, especially if you have the largest navy in the world. Point taken, Greenland, point taken, everyone. It's been a pleasure. I've been Matt, and let's have another No Cap Gaming.